Good morning, grandkids. I thought I would tell you a little bit about how I used to play Civilization 2. That's been many years ago, but I used to play it for years. That was the first game I ever learned how to play. My son gave it to me, and then he'd sit beside me and help me learn how to play it. And I became really, really addicted to that game and to gaming in general at that time, but that was the first thing I did. Of course, the first lots of times that I played it, I was always getting creamed by other countries. I never could get advanced far enough to have enough resources to retaliate with. But eventually I learned various strategies in the game and was able to play pretty good. I was going to show the civilization map that I have as I would point out some things I would do, but I can't find it. I've stashed it away somewhere. I thought it was with my Skyrim maps, but it isn't. I don't know where I've put it. Anyway, after all those times of not being able to play very successfully and eventually learned some strategies along the way, I came up with the idea of, as I would build up some military in each of my cities, I started producing the first fighting ships. I forget what those were called. Destroyers, I think. And the part of the edge of my continent that seemed to attract the most enemies, I would start lining my coastline with those destroyers until eventually I had progressed far enough across my own continent to have cities on the coast all around, and I had my whole continent lined with destroyers. So then I started building aircraft carriers, and as my destroyers fought, and some taken out, I'd replace them so that I didn't have any gaps for enemies to get through and land on my continent. So I placed the destroyers, I moved all of my destroyers out and placed all of my aircraft carriers in the row close to the coast, because they could send out planes over the destroyers. And then eventually I had progressed and leveled up far enough that I could make those huge, strong battleships. And I forget what they were called. I know that some were called battleships. Some was called something that started with an A, A-E-G-I-S or something like that. And so then I'd move my destroyers out one, move my battleship or aircraft carriers out one, and then put the big battleships around the coast, because if anything got through, they could take care of them. And they could shoot those big cannons out over everything. So that's how I had my coastline set up. If a trader ship came, I would open up just a passage through those 3 lines of ships so that they could come and land and trade. If they wanted to trade, that was fine, but if they was coming with a destroyer or a plane that I could shoot out of the sky, then they were dead in the water. So after that, I kept on building up my ground military, and then built me a lot of transport ships. And when I had a lot, I took my military over to the coast of the first continent that I wanted to conquer. And I would usually have several of the big battleships with them, of course. So I took out everything in their path so that they could land on the coast. And I put them like in a line, like maybe spread 1 and 2 groups of military apart. And I would go like a wave across that continent, taking out every city that I came to. And it didn't take very long, it seemed, to conquer that continent. And then I changed the names of the cities, and then took some settlers over there and started building my own cities. And then I would take all my military and some battleships over to the next continent and do the same thing. And after I conquered all the continents, on the last one, I would conquer all the cities down to just one, because I wanted to keep on playing and building more cities and go out and build on islands and stuff. And I wouldn't have been able to if I had let that last city die, because then the game would automatically end. So I kept that one city alive and surrounded it with some military. And every time they would get beyond 1 citizen, I'd get rid of whatever they had. Or if I stayed like 1 or 2 spaces away from the city so that they could come out and try to do something. But every time they did something, I'd destroy it. So I just kept them at 1 citizen for the rest of the time that I wanted to play. And I remember my son, who gave me the game and taught me how to play, told me that if one of his brothers asked him anything about the game, something to do or something, he would tell him to ask Mom, because she's the one that won all the battles. So that's how I played the game. But I haven't done that for years, and by now my brain has gotten too old to go through all that stuff. I would not be able to do it today. I'd be like a newbie for sure. So I went on through the games. I played 3 and 4, and I don't even remember them. And I don't have any save games. I wish I had so that I could show them to you, but I didn't keep save games at that time. So I eventually came to Civilization 5 and 6. Well, I started playing 5, and I really liked it because the graphics was a lot better. And you could more or less play it the same way, but this was in later years, and I didn't play that way anymore. All I wanted to do was be left alone and build cities. And I tried Civ 6, but I really just couldn't get enthused over the style of that one, so I didn't play that. But I do still play Civilization 5. Like in the evenings, if I just want to relax a bit before I go to bed, I'll play that. But for that play style, I have just I'll progress in the game until I can get pyramids, and then I build that so that I get 2 free workers. And then I start 1 in each direction along the coast, building roads. And then when I feel it's time, I build 2 settlers and 2 workers to follow behind each one and build the next 2 cities. And then I start growing, and I'll build all the way around the coast. And when I start making money, then I just start buying all the squares that I want them to own and let everything just grow and develop until finally you come to that part where the Congress interferes and you have to start making proposals and stuff like that. And then I get bored and then I stop and I start a new game. And every time I load a new game, if it puts me somewhere on the map instead of on a coast, I'll delete it and start it again, get a new map, until I get one on the coast. Because once in a great while, I have done one which luckily started somewhere in the middle of the continent. That's fine. I spread out from there and I build like 3 roads in different directions until I find the coast so that I can start building on my coast because I want the fish and stuff. But I very seldom do that because almost every time I don't get that lucky, and as the Pathfinder moves out from the town, I find then, after I've already settled the town, that it's like 2 or 3 spaces from the coast, which makes me so mad. And so I'll delete it and start again until I can find one that's on the coast. So that's how I play Civ V, just for my own recreation and enjoyment, not for any of the fighting. I never progressed to any of that. Oh, and I always go to advanced settings and get rid of all the civilizations except one other one. You have to keep one. And I get rid of the city-states. I don't want to deal with any of that. I just want to build cities on my continent and maybe some islands around if I have any. So that's how I play. That's how I used to play, and that's how I now play. So I could have showed you some of that on how I did my battleships and stuff if I just could have found my map. I gotta get with it and find that. I don't know where I put it. Anyway, that's my telling you my stories about my civilization games. And I wish I had something to show you, but I don't save any of them. So I'll talk to you later. If I can come up with something else to talk about, I will, but I don't know what it'd be. So bye-bye, grandkids. Hope you all had a very good Christmas, and I hope you'll have a nice and fun New Year's. Don't anybody get too drunk and get in any trouble or accidents. Love you. Bye-bye.